Howdy SMITE fans, it's J-Mac. Season 8 is now over with the conclusion of the SMITE World Championships that took place this past week. We got to watch the best of the best duke it out one more time to see who would be crowned the Season 8 champions. Well, let's relive the magic and watch back one more time to see what all happened in the SWC edition of this week's SPL Weekly Recap. Our event kicked off Friday with the Jade Dragons up against the Solar Scarabs. The Jade Dragons were the fan favorites coming this event, but with the history of these two teams, you never know what's going to happen. Game number 1, the Dragons exerted heavy pressure in the duo lane, putting Stewart in inbound on the back foot. The Dragons then snagged an 18-minute Fire Giant and continued their reign of terror, closing out Game 1 with a win. Game number 2 opened up with 2 clean kills out of the Scarabs in the jungle, and from that, SOT could freely roam the map and pop off with a quadra kill at a Gold Fury fight, giving this team all the pressure they need to win the game and tie up the set 1-1. Game number 3 was a relatively even game until a disastrous fight out of the Dragons to the Gold Fury nets the Scarabs the Fury 3 kills, and all for only inbounds life. This trend would continue the rest of the game and elevate the Scarabs to now lead the series 2-1. And even with the early game shutdown of SOT by the Dragons, Stewart and Scream alleviate enough pressure through the mid-game to bring the Scarabs back in control, and the Scarabs once again reclaim the title of Dragon Slayers. The Dragons, with their first and last loss of the season, now in the hands of the Solar Scarabs. It's the Scarabs who move on with their 3-1. Our second quarterfinal pit the Olympus Bolts up against the Atlantis Leviathans. Another historical pair of teams with their matchups, usually with the Olympus Bolts winning out. But this time, it would be put to the ultimate test. Game 1 was a fast-paced early game with both teams, trading out blow for blow. Then, after a nearly 15-minute Fire Giant dance, it was the Bolts who broke the team fight wide open and killed 3 of the Leviathans and claimed the enhanced Fire Giant. However, the Leviathans' base defense overwhelmed the Bolts, and in one, and I mean literally one team fight under the Leviathans' left Phoenix, the Bolts crumbled, and the Leviathans were able to deicide them and take Game 1. Second game, Shinto picked up a few early kills to establish a massive early lead in the mid lane. Then, in around 22 minutes, the Leviathans forced the fight at the Gold Fury. They won that handedly. They killed 3 of the Bolts, and they said, well, who cares about a Gold Fury? And instead, took a Fire Giant instead. And even though it took a little longer afterwards, the Leviathans cleanly closed out game number 2 for a 2-0 lead in the set. Game number 3, the Bolts had a vendetta for Wrong U, expending 2 to 3 ultimates to try and kill him every single time they got the opportunity to. The problem was that the Leviathans still have 4 other players on that map, and because they'd used so many resources to kill Wrong U, they had nothing for the ensuing team fights afterwards. And 1 Fire Giant later, the Leviathans end the game and send the Olympus Bolts packing with a 3-0 sweep. Well, semifinal Saturday has shown up, and we've got the Solar Scarabs taking on the Tartarus Titans. And after their dominant performance throughout the entirety of Phase 3, the Titans were one of the favorites to take the entire event. Game 1 started out like it was gonna go to the Titans with a nice and easy 3 kills in the early game. However, a level 12 rotation out of SOT to the duo lane flung the door wide open for the Scarabs. The Scarabs then developed the epitome of the W key comp and played it to perfection, never giving the Titans an inch to breathe, and the Bug Boys are able to take game number 1. The next game is a pretty good reminder that kills don't mean anything, because even with the Scarabs holding the kill count throughout the entire game, Aurora and the old school bracer strats that developed earlier on in the year allow the Titans to burn through objectives and get the extra edge they need over the Scarabs to take Game 2. Game 3 started out fairly even, but the Scarabs took a horrible fight around the Gold Fury, and with only Aurora going down on the side of the Titans, he trades his life out for a Fury, a deicide of the Scarabs, and a Fire Giant. And with the wind knocked out of the sails of the Scarabs, the Titans are able to take Game 3. Game 4 can be summed up as Aurora playing the best Fenrir of his life. The Titans TKO'd the Scarabs with the Fire Giant before rushing down all 3 Phoenixes, deiciding the Scarabs, and taking the set 3-1 to send the Scarabs home. And to close out our semifinals, we had the Camelot Kings up against the Atlantis Leviathans. All right, so game number 1, quite literally nothing happened until 17 minutes and 15 seconds on the clock when the Leviathans first blood the Kings, take the Fire Giant, and then barrel stuff the right side of the map to end the game just 3.5 minutes later. Yes, that's literally all that happened in game number 1. Game number 2, Panatom and Shinto shredded the mid 3v3 of the Kings to take a devastating lead over them. And it took them a little while, but finally, after the enhanced Fire Giant goes down, the Leviathans remove the now respawned Phoenixes off the map of the Kings, and then they take the Titan. Game number 3, we finally see some light from the Kings. Netra comes up huge in just about every single fight, time and time again. And with the Kings' help in the Sanctified Fields, the Fire Giant +1 final surge on the right side spelled the end of Game 3, with the Kings finally getting their first win of the set. And everyone during Game 4 thought that the comp out of the Leviathans was a bit odd. With basically no hard CC, save for a single target stun and a banish, the Leviathans had to kick it into overdrive if they wanted to find a win. And down 7,000 gold, the Leviathans pick a fight in the mid lane, trading Wrong U for 2, then marching over to the Fire Giant, where they picked off the last 3 members of the Kings. Not once, but twice, we see this banish from Zapman nuke 1 member of the Kings, and in the ensuing team fights after, Shinto gets the best Mantle of Discord proc of the entire tournament, sparing his life and assisting with deiciding the Kings to push the Leviathans to take the set and send the Kings home with a 3-1 win. Well, it's Championship Sunday, and our grand finals pit the Tartarus Titans up against the Atlantis Leviathans. Once teammates and now rivals on the battleground, Paul and Zapman would duke it out to see who would be SMITE's first ever 3-time champion. And it all starts in game number 1. The Tartarus Titans start off with a couple of early picks, which are then soon matched by the Leviathans. Nearly 25 minutes of near-miss fights and objectives ping-ponging the lead back and forth between the two teams. It wasn't until the Fire Giant bait by the Leviathans that we truly see the first major fight, where the Leviathans pick off 4 members and Zapman returns to finish the Fire Giant. The game then spirals out of control immediately, and the Leviathans push to the end and take game number 1 of the finals. Game 2 started out with essentially nothing happened for 11 minutes, and then in the first team fight that we get, the Leviathans get not just 1, not 2, but a full-on deicide up against the Titans. And then they take the Gold Fury right after. A clinical performance out of Panatom and Shinto nets the Leviathans an insurmountable lead over the Titans. And with only a single death on the entire team, the Leviathans swept the rug from under the Titans to take the series 2-0 in a lead. To open up game number 3, Yarkor and Panatom blasted their opponents in the jungle, grabbing 2 very early kills. And then, Panatom continued his onslaught across the map. And just when the Titans thought they could finally see something, when they finally thought that they had a chance back in this game to kill Yarkor, he and the rest of his team come up huge to keep Yark alive at just 22 HP, and he turns it around for a massive triple kill. However, Paul, the last hope for the Titans, pops off on a botched Phoenix engage by the Leviathans. And between both teams, it's only Paul and Wrong U left standing at the end. But even with all of that, it's one final fight at the Fire Giant that the Leviathans pick up an objective, 2 kills, and surge up the right lane. Well, and then this happens.
Back up. Here they come, 15 seconds on Aurora, 30 seconds on layers. You have to take a deep breath in a moment like this if you're the Leviathans. Aggro all year long. It's been against the Leviathans. They will walk into the Tartarus Titans base far ahead of this game. Last year, they were told they do not belong. This year, we were told they would fall out early. Say it 3 times for the 3-time. Vamos, 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 Leviathans on top of the world of SMITE.
And in one of the most dominant performances that we have seen in the entirety of the SPL SMITE World Championship history, it's the Leviathans at the end of the day who come out on top. Yarkor, Panatom, Shinto, and Rongyu finally get to lift Thor's hammer for the first time after their 3-year grind. And Zapman gets to lift it for his 3rd time straight and becomes SMITE's first and only 3-peat champion. Congratulations to the Atlantis Leviathans. You guys absolutely deserve the win that you got this weekend. From all of us here at the SPL, thank you so much for tuning in this season. From me here on the SPL Weekly Recap, it's been a pleasure reliving these moments with you guys. And I can't wait to see you guys for Season 9.